What if I told you the only thing standing between you and the life you dream of is the fear you haven't faced yet? Asterisk, ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment in every life when fear looks you in the eyes and dares you to stop. It whispers, doubts, paints shadows, and magnifies every weakness you've ever known. But there is a power within you that is louder than fear, stronger than doubt, and deeper than anything that has ever tried to break you. That power is your unstoppable spirit, and when you let that spirit rise, fear doesn't just back down, it steps aside. Being unstoppable isn't about being fearless. It's about moving forward even when fear follows your every step. It's about feeling the tremble in your hands and the quake in your heart and still choosing to show up. It's refusing to wait for the perfect moment and instead becoming the force that creates it. You were not made to be a prisoner of hesitation. You were born to conquer, to break barriers, to rise so fiercely that even fear forgets your name. Let the world watch you fall and then watch you rise again. Let them see that every setback carved strength into your soul. Let fear witness the fire in your eyes and the thunder in your stride. Be so determined, so persistent, that even the things that once terrified you now salute you in silence. Because when you become unstoppable, nothing can chain you, not failure, not rejection, not fear. Every second you doubt yourself, remember this: you are still here. After everything that tried to destroy you, you are still breathing, still dreaming, still fighting. That alone is proof of your power. Fear is a guest. You are the master of your path. Rise beyond it. Become the storm that fear tries to hide from. Let your courage echo louder than your excuses, and let your actions roar so powerfully that even fear bows in respect. Your life is waiting for the boldest version of you. Stand tall, be fierce, be unstoppable, and let fear know it has no place in your story. Asterisk. Ladies and gentlemen, let me begin by asking you to pause and reflect. Reflect not on what you have done, but on what you have stopped yourself from doing. Reflect on those silent moments where fear convinced you to shrink, when deep inside you knew you were built for something far greater. We live in a world where fear wears many faces: failure, judgment, rejection, abandonment, ridicule, but none of those faces can match the power of a mind that refuses to stop moving. An unstoppable person does not wait for confidence. They act in its absence. They do not ask fear for permission to grow. They move, even when their hands tremble and their voice shakes, because they understand that fear will always be loud, but it will never be permanent, not unless you allow it to take root and silence your will. You see, fear thrives in stillness. It grows stronger when you hesitate. But the moment you rise, the moment you take even a single step toward what you know you were born for, you strip fear of its power. Every powerful person you admire didn't begin with certainty. They began with pain, with doubt, with darkness, but they chose to walk anyway, to speak anyway, to rise anyway. What separates the unstoppable from the ordinary is not natural talent or luck. It's an inner decision made repeatedly, to keep showing up no matter the cost. There are people who will talk themselves out of their own greatness every day, not because they lack ability, but because they've made fear their master instead of their motivator. But you are not made to be ruled by shadows. You are not born to be average. You carry within you a light so fierce that the moment you choose to ignite it, fear doesn't just move, it flees. Be so rooted in your purpose that fear becomes irrelevant. Not absent, but irrelevant. Let it scream. Let it shake you, but don't you dare let it stop you. The only way to make fear step aside is to stop stepping back. You are allowed to cry. You are allowed to feel overwhelmed. But you are never allowed to quit. That moment you feel like giving up is often the moment right before your breakthrough. Keep pushing, keep building, keep believing. Because when fear watches a human soul that refuses to surrender, it steps aside not out of kindness, but because it realizes it is no longer welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a time in life when you must decide what kind of legacy you will leave behind, not in the form of fame or fortune, but in the form of courage. Will people remember you as someone who was silenced by fear, or someone who stared it in the face and said, "Move"? There is no easy path to greatness. It demands sweat, sacrifice, struggle, and strength of spirit. But the secret is this: the more you face what terrifies you, the more fearless you become, not because fear disappears, but because you grow so far beyond its reach that it can no longer dictate your decisions. Asterisk. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a fire that lives inside you, and though you may not always feel it, Though the storms of life try to smother it, it never truly dies. That fire is the part of you that knows what you're capable of. It's the part that remembers your strength even when your body forgets. The part that believes in your worth when the world overlooks you. And the part that continues whispering, keep going, long after you've considered giving up. That fire is what makes you unstoppable, and it is the very thing fear cannot touch. Fear doesn't need to destroy you to win. All it has to do is delay you long enough that you miss your moment. It convinces you that next year is better, that tomorrow is safer, that someday is soon. But someday is a lie. There is no perfect moment. There is only now. The more you postpone your passion, your purpose, your power, the more fear strengthens its grip. And yet, the moment you act even imperfectly, even afraid, fear begins to lose its voice. Because fear cannot coexist with motion. The second you move, it begins to retreat. The most dangerous thing you can do is underestimate yourself. The most courageous thing you can do is bet on your own resilience. We live in a world that profits from your self-doubt. You are constantly being told that you're not enough by media, by society, by people who've never walked in your shoes. But the truth is, those voices only have power if you give them your silence. Your voice, your vision, your mission. These are not accidents. They are assignments. You were born with something the world needs, and fear knows it. That's why it tries so hard to keep you small. But you didn't survive what you did to stay silent. You didn't make it through your worst days just to bow to fear on your best ones. You are a living, breathing testimony that resilience walks this earth. You have stories inside you that could set others free. You have ideas that could reshape lives. And you have strength that's still untapped. Because fear has spent too long sitting in the driver's seat. But that ends now. It ends the moment you stand up and say, I will not be a victim of fear. I will be a vessel of victory. No more holding back. No more questioning whether you're ready. No more waiting for someone else to tell you that you matter. You do, right now, without apology, without permission. You matter because you exist, and you are unstoppable the moment you decide to be. So let fear watch as you rebuild from ruins. Let it witness you choosing faith in the middle of uncertainty. Let it tremble as you speak truth in the face of rejection. Let it sit quietly as you rewrite every limit you were taught. Because when you rise with the kind of courage that shakes mountains, fear cannot stand in your way. It must step aside, not because it wants to, but because it no longer has the strength to stop you. Many people live waiting for the fear to go away before they begin, waiting to feel safe before they leap, waiting for approval before they become who they were meant to be. That waiting becomes a lifetime of silence. But those who become legends do not wait. They act in spite of fear. They act through it. They trust that their future self is worth the risk of the present moment. Do not spend your life tiptoeing around what you were born to crush. Step into it. If it makes your heart race, if it makes your hands sweat, if it feels bigger than you, it's probably exactly what you need to chase. Imagine if fear stepped aside every time you stood tall. Imagine if hesitation vanished every time you chose belief. That doesn't happen by chance. It happens by force. You must train your mind to be louder than the voices that want you small. You must push even when no one is watching. You must rise when no one claps. That is where greatness is forged, in silence, in discomfort, in doubt. And when you walk through all of that without stopping, fear takes notice. It no longer commands the room. You do. The truth is, fear doesn't hate you. It's just doing its job. It's trying to keep you safe. But greatness was never built in safety. It was built in risk, built in chaos, built in courage. So next time fear speaks, listen but don't obey. Understand it but don't surrender. Because every time you choose bravery over comfort, you send a message not just to the world, but to yourself that you are no longer a slave to fear. You are the master of your fate. Be so bold, so focused, so relentless, that even fear has no choice but to move aside and let you pass. Please write in the English language. *, ladies and gentlemen, we live in a world that tells you to be careful, to stay safe, to avoid risk. But what they don't tell you is that comfort is a cage, and fear is the lock. From the time we are young, we are taught to color within the lines, follow the rules, and not make too much noise. But greatness doesn't live in the lines. Purpose doesn't thrive in safety. And you were never meant to walk through life quietly. You weren't born to play small. You weren't created to blend in. There is something about you that defies limitation. that burns too brightly to be dimmed by fear's shadow. But that fire is the truth of who you are. That fire is your calling, your voice, your power. And for that fire to rise, you must make a decision to walk through the fire of failure, to face the burn of rejection, to endure the heat of uncertainty, because only in that furnace will you be forged into the unstoppable force you were meant to become. Every scar, every wound, every bruise you carry, let them not be symbols of defeat, but emblems of your rising. Fear does not stand a chance against someone who sees failure as fuel, against someone who uses pain as purpose, against someone who walks through storms with a spine of steel. Let that be you, not once, but every single day. This section will be expanded into a full 6,000-word version, a decision to walk through the fire of failure, to face the burn of rejection, to endure the heat of uncertainty. You see, people wait for perfect timing. They wait for conditions to be ideal, for fear to disappear. But the truth is, there will never be a moment when fear completely vanishes. It lingers in the corners, watching, whispering, waiting. And that's exactly why the only way to defeat fear is to walk through it. Not to tiptoe, not to apologize, but to walk boldly, with your head held high, even if your knees are shaking. Because only in that furnace of discomfort will you be forged into the unstoppable force you were always meant to become. Strength is not born in ease, it is born in struggle. It is born when your voice trembles but you speak anyway, when your hands shake but you still build, when your path is unclear but you walk it anyway. Expand it into 6,000 words. Fear wants to shrink you. It wants to trap you inside a version of yourself that is easy to control. It wants you silent, but you were never meant to be silent. You were meant to shake the ground with your footsteps, to awaken the world with your roar. Every scar, every wound, every bruise you carry, let them not be symbols of defeat, but emblems of your rising. Each one is a chapter of your story, a line in your anthem. Let them remind you that you are still here, still standing, still fighting. That alone makes you a giant in a world of hesitation. We often ask, what if I fail? But the real question is, what if you never try? What if you live your whole life letting fear make your decisions? What if you never step into your purpose because the pain of the unknown outweighed the beauty of the possible? That is the real tragedy. Not failure, but never beginning. Not rejection, but regret. And if you think for a second that fear is stronger than you, remember this: you are still breathing. After every heartbreak, every loss, every disappointment, you are still here. That's not weakness. That's proof of your strength. That's proof that fear may visit, but it doesn't own you. It never did. Be so rooted in your mission that fear becomes irrelevant, not absent irrelevant. Let it scream, let it shake you, but don't let it stop you. Walk forward anyway. Speak anyway. Build anyway, because your purpose depends on it. Because someone out there is waiting for what only you can bring into this world. And if fear is what stands in the way, then let it tremble in your presence. Let fear witness the fire in your eyes and the thunder in your stride. Let it know that it has no claim on your future. Let it see that every time it tries to hold you back, it only sharpens your edge, strengthens your resolve, and fuels your momentum. There will be days when you feel exhausted, days when quitting seems easier than rising. But those are the days that define you. Not the easy days, not the victories, but the moments when everything in you wants to retreat and you choose to rise anyway. That's what it means to be unstoppable. Not perfect, not fearless, but consistent, relentless, devoted. That is where fear loses its grip. That is where you take your power back. That is where your legacy begins. So be the one who keeps going. Be the one who doesn't flinch when the storm hits. Be the one who walks through the fire and comes out not burned but forged. You don't need permission. You don't need a sign. You are the sign. You are the permission. Your life is not meant to be lived behind a wall of fear. It is meant to be lived with open hands, bold steps, and a heart on fire. You are not small. You are not weak. You are not broken. You are becoming something unstoppable. Becoming someone unshakable. Becoming the version of yourself that fear can no longer intimidate. So make that choice. Not tomorrow, not next year. Now decide to rise. Decide to walk even when your legs feel heavy. Decide to speak even when your voice shakes. Decide to be the kind of person who doesn't bow to fear, but stands tall in spite of it. And as you walk forward, let fear step aside. Not because it's gone, but because it knows it can no longer hold you. You've outgrown it. You've outlasted it. You've overcome it. And now, you walk as the force you were always meant to be. Be so unstoppable that even fear steps aside. Ladies and gentlemen, there will be voices in your life that try to define who you are. Voices that try to confine your potential within walls you never agreed to build. Some of those voices will come from outside, from people who don't believe in dreams they can't see, from systems designed to reward conformity, from a society that fears what it cannot control. But the most dangerous voice, the one that cuts the deepest, often comes from within. It's the voice that whispers, "You're not ready, you're not enough, don't even try." That voice is fear's favorite weapon. It's subtle, it's cunning, and it disguises itself as logic. But make no mistake, it is a lie. A lie told so often that we start to mistake it for truth. And the moment you recognize that lie, the moment you call it out, is the moment you take back your power. You have to understand, fear is not trying to kill your dream, it's trying to delay it. It's trying to buy time. Time for you to forget why you started. Time for you to numb yourself with distractions, with excuses, with stories that make settling feel like safety. But your purpose doesn't wait. Your potential doesn't sleep. It grows restless in silence. It aches when ignored. And the longer you wait, the louder that ache becomes. Until one day, the pain of not pursuing your dream outweighs the fear of failing at it. And in that moment, you awaken. Not because you found courage, but because you remembered who you are. You remembered that the fire inside you was never meant to be dimmed. It was meant to light the path, not only for you, but for others who've forgotten their way. Every great transformation begins with a decision to stop letting fear write your story, a decision to no longer apologize for your ambition, a decision to rise, and that rise won't be easy. You will be misunderstood, you will be doubted, you will walk alone, but do it anyway, speak anyway, build anyway, not for approval, but for alignment, not for applause, but for truth. Because the more you live in alignment with who you truly are, the less room fear has to exist. It can't survive in the light of authenticity. It cannot thrive in the presence of conviction. And when you become so rooted in your truth that nothing can sway you, that's when fear steps aside, not because you defeated it, but because you outgrew it. There's a version of you that fear has never met. A version so bold, so focused, so unshakable, that it doesn't just face fear, it silences it. That version is already inside you. It's not waiting to be found, it's waiting to be freed. Freed from the opinions of others. Freed from the pressure to be perfect. Freed from the guilt of choosing yourself. Let that version rise. Let it speak. Let it create. Let it defy every doubt ever planted in your heart. Because you are not here to fit in. You are here to wake the world with your presence. You are here to rewrite what's possible. So when fear knocks, let it knock, let it scream, let it shout all the reasons why you shouldn't move forward, and then move anyway, step anyway, leap anyway, because you were not made to retreat, you were made to roar, you were made to rise, and when you finally do, when you choose your power over your fear, you will see it. The path that once seemed impossible begins to clear, the doors that once seemed closed begin to open, and the life you once only dreamed of becomes the life you live. Be so unstoppable that even fear steps aside. Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a time in every journey where you are no longer fighting to win, you are fighting to become. The challenge shifts from external obstacles to internal mastery. The war is no longer about defeating others, it's about outlasting your own doubt. To be unstoppable doesn't mean you no longer feel fear. It means fear no longer has authority over your decisions. And the only way that happens is when you become so aligned with your purpose that nothing, not rejection, not pain, not criticism, can pull you away from your path. When your why is louder than your worry, when your vision is greater than your vulnerability, when your mission is deeper than your mood, you become dangerous to fear itself. What we often forget is that growth demands discomfort. Every season of elevation begins with disruption. Every breakthrough is born in chaos. We pray for strength, yet avoid struggle. We ask for courage, yet flee from challenge. But the truth is, you cannot become unstoppable while living in convenience. Comfort is the enemy of evolution. The cocoon is safe, but butterflies were not made to crawl. You must be willing to outgrow what no longer serves you. To be so committed to your evolution that you are willing to walk through fire with a smile on your face and conviction in your bones. Fear may scream, but it cannot stop you if your steps are driven by something greater than comfort. Resilience is not built in moments of ease, it is chiseled in moments when everything inside you wants to stop. You gain your edge not by doing what's easy, but by doing what's necessary, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. Because pain is not punishment, it's preparation. It's the refining process that strips away who you were, so that who you're meant to become can rise. And every time you rise when it would have been easier to retreat, you send a message to fear. I no longer serve you. There is an ocean of potential inside of you, and it's not meant to stay still. It's meant to create waves. But the current of fear will try to hold it back. It will tell you to wait, to play safe, to lower your voice, your standards, your expectations. And if you're not careful, you'll listen. You'll trade your passion for approval, your authenticity for acceptance. And slowly, your dream will suffocate under the weight of everything you were never meant to carry. That's why now is the time, not later, not someday. Now is the moment to reclaim your life, to rise from the ruins of your excuses, to pull yourself out of the patterns that have kept you small. You owe it to yourself to be more than your fear. You owe it to every version of you that was silenced, every younger you who doubted they were enough, every present you who still wonders if it's too late. Let this be your revolution, the one where you stop negotiating with fear and start dictating your destiny. Let this be the moment you no longer shrink to fit the comfort of others. Let this be where your new chapter begins, the one written in courage, bound by purpose, and driven by a fire that can't be tamed. Your legacy doesn't start when you achieve something. It starts the moment you refuse to quit. It begins when you show up, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. And when you do that, when you show up broken, bruised, doubting, and still give your best, you become the definition of unstoppable, not flawless, not fearless, just unwilling to let fear make your decisions for you ever again. That is the power of persistence. That is the mark of someone who no longer allows fear to sit at the table, be so unstoppable that even fear steps aside. Thank you.